Hi, this is Rabbi Chaim Coffman, and I wanted to make this special video on the upcoming holiday of Shavuot. Shavuot literally means weeks. We count from Passover, from the second night of Passover, we count each day till we get to the 49th day, right? And the 49th day, or the 50th day really, is going to be Shavuot. So the counting of the Omer, we spend, each night, we say the blessing for the days, for the weeks, and the weeks and the days, etc., till we get to the till we get to the holiday of Shavuot. Shavuot commemorates the single most important event that happened in the history of man. What event was that? That was the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai, right? There's no other event in history that even comes close to the Jews receiving the Torah. Now, keep in mind, all the nations, right? The Christians, the Muslims, all agree that God gave the Jewish people the Torah, which is a pretty amazing thing when you think about it, because the Torah says that there were 600,000 men and 600,000 men between the ages of 20 and 60, not including women and children. So you're talking about 3 million people. So there's disagreement among the commentaries whether the Jewish people, the entire nation, heard all the 10 Commandments, or they only heard some of them. Some of the commentaries say they only heard some of them. They heard the first one, and the experience was so great that they died, so God had to bring them back to life. They heard the second one, same thing. So they said to Moshe Rabbeinu, said, listen, we're not on the level to be able to hear the rest of the commandments. It's, too big of a deal to die, come back. So, you listen to what God says, and you tell us what to do. So the other religions, or so-called religions, agree that the Jewish people got the Torah. So Shavuot is the night that we commemorate the giving of the Torah. Now some people say it's the holiday for cheesecake. Well, that may be true also, right? Cheesecake, dairy products, so we'll speak about that a little bit. But the essence of the holiday itself is about Torah. Now, each holiday has their own special things, right? The Rosh Hashanah is about the shofar. Yom Kippur is about fasting. Sukkot is about the sukkah and the Arba Minim, the 4 things that you shake. You shake the lulav. You have an esrog, right? Or as I call it, a lemon on steroids. You have willows. You have myrtle leaves. And you sit in the sukkah. Passover, you got matzah. Obviously, you clean your house for any leavened product. And on Shavuot, you get cheesecake. No, just kidding. You get the mitzvah of Torah. So the mitzvah of Torah, interesting, is that even though on Shavuot the real judgment is on what? Is on fruit trees. And that's what's going to get judged at that time. But there's another judgment going on. And that judgment is on us about the Torah that we learn. How important is the Torah that we learned? Did we learn it to our full capacity? Or did we waste our time with other things? So if we want to show how important the Torah is, so according to Kabbalah, according to the Arizal, it's brought down in Halacha and Jewish law, that we stay up all night and learn. Now what's the idea of staying up all night and learning? Because when God gave the Torah to the Jewish people, what happened? We were asleep. So God had to wake us up. Thunder, lightning, all these great things going on. And the Jewish people had to wake up from their slumber. So in order to fix that up, we stay up all night. So it gives kids the opportunity, drink lots of coffee and soda, trying to keep them up. Adults as well, for that matter. But the idea is we are showing how important learning Torah is. So there's a difference. Though we already have a holiday for that, we commemorate the importance of the Torah. It's called Simchas Torah. There are 2 holidays outside the land of Israel at the end of Sukkot. The first day is called, on the last days, the second to last day is called Shmini Atzeres, which is basically a separate holiday from Sukkot, because we don't sleep in the sukkah. We do sit in the sukkah. We don't make a blessing over sitting in the sukkah, but we do sit in the sukkah, at least for part of it. But it's really not part of sukkahs per se. It's like a separate holiday. And the day after, outside of Israel, we have the holiday of Simchas Torah. The holiday of Simchas Torah, we take out all the Torahs, and we dance with them, and we start reading the Torah from the beginning. So Shavuot, why don't we do the same thing? In theory, I would say we should do the same thing, but Shavuot is a whole different thing. Simchas Torah, we're celebrating that we finish reading the Torah, where we read one parsha or maybe two parshas during the week in order to finish the cycle of reading the Torah in 1 year. But sometimes there's a leap year. Every so often there's a leap year. So therefore there'll be less parshios that you have a double portion. When it's not a leap year, so you have more. So we finish the Torah every year. So it's a tremendous celebration that we finish it and we begin it again. So we finish it in order to show that we're never done. Right? That's why we start straight away and we start reading from beginning of Genesis. That's tremendous joy. Shavuos is something different. Shavuos is all about renewal of Torah. That we renew ourselves and our commitment to Torah. That's a whole different thing. Right? We're not finished learning Torah. We're not saying we're finished learning Torah. We're excited that we finished and now we can start again. No, we're saying we're going to commit ourselves more to Torah. How are we doing that? We're showing that by staying up all night, right? By eating cheesecake, by drinking coffee. That's part of, it's part of the holiday, obviously not the main part. But the idea is that we're commemorating renewal. We're commemorating our commitment to its ideals, to what God wants us to do in this world. So, therefore, we're going to stay up late, and we're going to learn. So there's a custom to learn Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral tradition, because at the same time that the Torah was given, there was an oral tradition given at the same time, sort of like a running commentary. And the reason that it wasn't written down until much later is because it was supposed to be oral. Problem was that Jewish people, were dispersed, they were thrown out of their land, so the rabbis allowed for it to be written down. Otherwise, it would have been given over orally. So how can you say there's an oral tradition? We don't hear anything specifically. There are hints in the Torah that speak about it, but it's not there directly. So oral tradition, as I mentioned, a number of times, that oral tradition is like a running commentary. You can't understand what the Torah says because it's unclear. You need a running commentary. Torah says, as we mentioned by sukkahs, you sit in a sukkah. Well, how big's a sukkah? Right? Is it 3 walls? Is it 4 walls? Does it have a roof? It doesn't have a roof. Right? Well, what does it mean to sit in a sukkah? And when it says take a nice smelling fruit with my lulav, right? A nice smelling fruit, you may think it's a quince, someone else thinks it's a pomegranate, someone thinks it's a kiwi, someone thinks it's a pineapple. Right? No one's ever going to think it's a lemon on steroids. Right? Where do you get an esrog? Right? That's oral tradition. So you need oral tradition to know what to do. Otherwise, we'd be in the dark. We'd have no idea. So we learn Torah Sheba'al Peh. We learn oral tradition. That means we learn midrashim. We learn Talmud. We learn other things, right, that show the oral tradition. At the same time, we read the book of Ruth. Now, a number of reasons why we read the book of Ruth. One is that it shows the strength of oral tradition. Why? Because from Ruth is a convert. Ruth came from Moab. The whole question how she was related to the king of Moab. But she was related to the king of Moab. And she came from Moab. Where did Moab came from? Moab came from the relationship between Lot and his daughters. Right? The first daughter had a child through him because she thought that all men perished with the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and therefore she got her father drunk and she slept with him, and she got pregnant, told her younger sister to do the same. And nonetheless, they have children. So her child, she names him Moab, right? Literally Me'av, from my father. Not so modest, right? Be that as it may, you have an incestuous relationship. That who comes from Moab eventually is Ruth. Who comes from Ruth is none other than King David, right? 5 generations later. Look at the genealogy at the end of the book of Ruth, right? It's clear. King David, comes 5 generations later, or he comes later. So he comes through Ruth, and King David represents kingship, and through King David is going to come the Messiah, right? The Messiah has to come through the Davidic line. Now, if we were writing this story, would we have King David coming from an incestuous relationship? No. So one of the reasons, or possible reasons this may be, is you have to keep in mind who King David was. Now, if you read the book of Psalms, King David didn't have an easy life. He's fleeing most of his life from his enemies, especially his kids. Right? He had the story of Avshalom, tries to kill him. Saul tries to kill him. He doesn't have an easy life. Well, so what's the point of the book of Ruth here? So King David comes from Ruth. But the problem is that there was a question of Moab. Is anyone from Moab allowed to convert, be part of the Jewish people? So there was a tradition that Moabite men were not allowed to convert. Moabite women were allowed to convert. Right? There was such a tradition. It wasn't necessarily so well known, but there was such a tradition. So therefore, if we wouldn't allow Ruth to convert, you don't get King David. You don't get the final Messiah, right? That comes from the Davidic line. So it's crucial that is known, and that is exactly what we hold according to Jewish law, according to Halakha. So therefore, when King David comes from Ruth, there's no problem, because we have an oral tradition saying it's fine. Right? Even though a Moabite man's not allowed to convert, oral tradition tells us that a Moabite woman is. So that strengthens oral tradition. And that's why the book of Ruth is read. Also, we eat dairy. Right? There's a custom to eat dairy. Some have actually a full dairy meal. Others, what they do is they make this grand milchik kiddush. They have a milk kiddush. And then they have meat. They have meat for the meal. So what's the idea of eating milk? Or eating milk products at this time? And the answer is, when the Jewish people got the Torah, so at this point, they're now considered converts. But when they got the Torah, before they got the Torah, they ate meat. Or the meat that they ate, though, there was no ritual circumcision. Circumcision, that's a good line. Ritual slaughter. So because there's not ritual slaughter, so all the utensils are now considered not kosher once the Torah is given. So now you get a problem. What are you going to eat? Right? You can't eat meat. You got nothing to eat it on. So they ate dairy. Right? One of the reasons that they ate dairy. So there is certainly what to talk about the fact that that we eat dairy and people get caught up in dairy meals and cheesecake and all that. Certainly has its place. That there's no question. You're supposed to enjoy, the festival. All right, if you don't enjoy eating milk products, you don't have to eat them. But that's one of the reasons why we do. But the essence, again, let's not forget, the essence of Shavuot is showing how much I want to put myself into Torah. Where is my commitment? Where am I holding? That's a huge thing. Right? It's not enough to say, I want to do something. Judaism's about doing things, not about philosophy. Right? Throw philosophy out the window. Philosophy has its place. Right? It's never going to convince anyone to do anything, for sure. There's an idea, people will say, well, if I understand this to a very deep level, we go into Kabbalistic things, my Judaism will look different. Maybe. Big maybe. Most likely, probably not. Why? Because we justify things. We could speak in philosophy, till tomorrow. Right? This video will be over, so we're not going to do that. But what does philosophy do? If it brings God down to this world, meaning, you're delving into the secrets of the universe, and you're drawing yourself closer to God, it's going to make you do something. Maybe. But a lot of times people use philosophy as a crutch. In other words, say, well, I'm not fully convinced. I can look into other things. I can read other books. I can take my time. I can philosophize. I can go like this and think of, can God make a rock so big that he can't throw it? No, he can't do that. Oh, that philosophy out the window. Boy, I wonder what people were thinking about for thousands of years. Right? Boggles the mind. Philosophizing doesn't mean anything. The reason it doesn't mean anything is very simple. Because it doesn't get you to do anything. Judaism is about doing, even if you don't understand 100% or maybe 70% or whatever of what you're doing. Right? When a person takes a lulav and he holds his esrog, he holds his lulav, and he says, Hoshana, and he's shaking. He shakes up, he shakes to the side, he shakes back, he shakes to the other side, he shakes up, and he shakes down 6 times. So, according to Kabbalah, what's he doing? He's getting rid of these bad omens and spirits and whatever by shaking. Right? That's one idea. A much deeper idea we're not going to go into, but it's one idea. At the end of the day, do I fully understand that? Do I fully understand? Go away! Go away! Go away! No, you're doing it because you have a command to do it. That is the mitzvah. How much I understand what I'm doing, I have a basic understanding. Okay. There's higher levels to reach. No question. But I'm not doing it just to reach the minimal level. There are much deeper things going on here. But as long as I do it, even if I don't fully understand it, I certainly get credit. If I have a basic understanding of a blessing that I make, but I don't fully understand the Hebrew and I say it in Hebrew, I fulfill my obligation. Now, obviously, it's better to understand it. It's better to understand it, to the best of our ability. But sometimes we don't do that. But I still fulfill my obligation and say, well, people will say, isn't it better I really fully understand it before I do it? Then you're never going to do it. So you can say, okay, so I'll never do it, but at least, I should have a much deeper understanding. That may be true. But keep in mind one thing. Or a number of things. We'll mention one. Keep in mind that even if you don't fully understand what you're doing, guess where the nourishment goes. Guess where the spiritual nourishment goes. It goes right here. Not to the body. It goes to the soul. It strengthens the soul. Remember, the soul is unsatiable. That means that within Judaism, I could learn and learn and learn and learn and learn. Hours, days, years, and still not even, hit the tip of the iceberg, about what I'm learning. Because there are multiple levels. The soul can expand to a certain extent. It becomes stronger. Right? We can retune it, refine it. But it can grow exponentially, spiritually. But what happens if a person's not spiritual? You didn't grow up with this. You're not interested in keeping any of the laws, God forbid. So what happens? So you got to fulfill the soul. You got to fill the soul with other things. So my language, you can fill it with all this garbage. Until you fill it with so much garbage, you need a snorkel in order to breathe. Obviously, that's not good. That means the soul shrinks. And it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. It doesn't disappear, it's still there. The juice still has the spark. No matter what you do to the soul, it's still there. It doesn't disintegrate. But you might need a nuclear bomb in order to get it to move, to do something. At the same time, if I strengthen it with spirituality, so then the soul wants more of it. But the body doesn't want to let it have it. So there's this constant friction, body and soul, going on till a person dies. The body's never going to give up. The evil inclination doesn't want to let the soul win. May give it some victories, but the evil inclination is going to work very hard to destroy it. So what happens if I do what I'm supposed to do? Then the soul gets stronger. And it uplifts my body, uplifts my soul. Because then it's going to be catchy. I want to do more. I want to help others. I want to do all these things. Doesn't mean the body's going to allow you to, but if I'm going in that direction, it sanctifies the soul and the body. If, on the other hand, I go after my evil inclination, I go after the body, because the body comes from this world. So, therefore, it's got power over the soul. So if I give into my body, into my animalistic side, within reason, then it debases the body, debases the soul. And the more I do that, the more I weaken the soul. The more I make it more difficult for the soul to shine. And we live in an upside down world that there's nothing to talk about. So in spiritual terms, you got to fight. A person going to live in the most religious neighborhood, etc. You still, that influence is good. Living in a ghetto is good because it instills our values. But there are many distractions in this world, right? We could be here till tomorrow naming them. But we can easily get distracted even for the sake of heaven. And when we get distracted, what happens? Our soul shrinks. Why does it shrink? Because you're not giving it anything. It's shrinking because it needs to be fed. You can feed it with two different things. You can feed it with something spiritual. You can feed it with something not spiritual. If I feed it with something spiritual, it can get stronger. If I feed it with the other way, it doesn't. So, now's the good time to take stock, of where we are. Passover was sort of the halfway point. It's like the halfway point between the high holy days. So after Passover, you got the 49 days, right? We count the Omer, and we keep counting first day, second day, etc. until we get to the 49th day, and the next night is Shavuot. So after Shavuot, you have about a month and a half or so until the 3 weeks. 3 weeks represents the destruction of the temple. So it's a mourning period. You have the 3 weeks, you have the 9 days, which is even a stronger mourning period. And then you have the fast of the 9th of Av. So you have about a month and a half, then you got 3 weeks, another week, another 10 days. And then what's after Tisha B'Av? What's after the 9th of Av? What's after the 9th of Av is a few weeks. You get to the month of Elul. Month of Elul, preparation for Rosh Hashanah. So I think, well, that's really far away. Yeah, it is. Right? It seems like it's far away, but it's going to move. Time's going to move. So I have a little bit of a break after Shavuot. But the thing is, I want to show my commitment, and maybe I'll make a Kabbalah, I'll take on something to show my commitment is sincere. And that will get me through the summer. Make me stronger in the summer to prepare for Judgment, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, right, which is after the summer. So is there a direct connection? It's later, but everything's direct in a certain way. Everything is connected. So it's something, to keep in mind. First, obviously, you got to survive the cheesecake. You have to survive staying up all night and drinking all that coffee and, whatever you're going to do. But we want to show sincerity. Even if we haven't done what we wanted to do during the year. Let's say we took on to do things from Rosh Hashanah. And after Rosh Hashanah. And whatever, we got lax. We were lazy. We put things to the side. Whatever it may be. At the end of the day, we didn't live up to what we said. So, Shavuot is a good time to try and renew that. You can take on the same thing, maybe something different, maybe something smaller, something that you're able to do. But God wants to see action, doesn't want to see philosophy. No philosophizing, right? All you philosophers, turn off the video, right? We're not interested. We're not interested in discussing all the intellectual issues. What happened at Mount Sinai? How was it passed on? All these different things. At the end of the day, are you in or you're out? Am I committed or I'm not committed? Am I willing to take a step or not? It's not about all or nothing. It's taking steps, even if they're small. But we have to do something. If we sit there and we do nothing, the soul just atrophies. Soul dies. I mean, even though it's infinite, you can just put the soul to sleep. Kind of like a plant. Take a plant, put it in the sunlight, water it for a while, and then stop watering it, see what happens. It's gonna die. You didn't give it its nutrients. You didn't give it a way to survive. Same thing with the soul. You want to feed it garbage? That's what it'll be. It's purely spiritual, but it's trapped in the physical body. Can't shine. That's only the end. That's only by resurrection it can fully shine. Can't shine now. But it's getting weaker and weaker, and we're getting sleepy and sleepy, and that's what happens to the soul. But didn't you say the soul's infinite? Yeah. But it's dying. It's dying because you're not feeding it what it needs. And even if you don't feed it what it needs to be satisfied in some way. So, a person, if they're not going to fulfill it, if they're not going to fill it with spirituality, they're going to have to fill it with other things. The person's going to have to be busy all the time. God forbid he should have any downtime. He doesn't know what he'll do. I mean, I know what he'll do. Take his iPhone and just be on his phone 10 hours a day. Every split second. Oh, I got some free time. Gonna waste it. Waste it some more. People sitting at the same table and too lazy to say pass something, they'll just text it. So this is where we are. So if the soul is not given what it needs, then it's going to have to be kept busy in many other ways. And once you have a lull, or there's nothing to do, or whatever, you got to find something to do. People are very great, very good at killing time. Find something to kill time. God forbid I should have free time, like, use my brain. Think about something important. The saying years ago that, some people think they think, and most people would rather die than think. Well, we'll analyze that, for a second. Most people don't want to think. Reality is or can be harsh. But the idea is we want to use as much as we can of that brain. Maybe most people use maybe 10%, 15%, of our brains. Well, the question is, what are we doing? How are we living? What is the central focus in our lives? Right, so if you were a Jew, it should be Torah. Everything revolves around that. How I live, what I eat, the holidays, Shabbos. But if I don't have Torah, then what? What does it revolve around? Work, after work. Doesn't mean people learn Torah, don't work. But the focus isn't on work. Focus is on Torah. I just have to work to make money. Put food on the table. So the focus is very different. A person has a conversation, he meets somebody for the first time. After a few, trivialities, how are you, this, that. Next question is going to be, what do you do? Right? It's a common thing. What do you do? Well, why are you asking? Well, no. Conversation piece. What's your line of work? That's what you're asking. But that's not who you are. We're not defined by what we do. Meaning, we're not defined by the job we have. We're defined by what I do. We're defined how we talk to one another. We're defined by our actions. God doesn't care about philosophy. You can think whatever you want. At the end of the day, devarim shebalev eino devarim. Words of my heart mean nothing. Nothing! It's about doing. It's about action. It's showing that God runs the world. Because we're tapping into Him. Even if we don't fully understand, that's okay. Because God's world is His world. We have to remember that. The Torah comes from Him. If the Torah comes from Him, we should think we should understand all of it. I remember learning, many years ago about certain things about laws of damages. And Talmud says that it's the closest thing to our, to our knowledge, to our brain capacity. Damages, we understand that. Right? You damage someone or he damages you. So who's liable? How much they have to pay? They have to pay doctor's bills, other things. But I remember, trying to analyze a certain text and, the pain. The pain in the head is growing and growing and growing. And I just remember saying, this is impossible. It's so difficult to put pieces together, figure out what in the world's going on. Why would someone do X or whatever and what the result is? So as I was told, you have to keep in mind, this is the closest thing to our own understanding. But don't forget the bigger picture. The bigger picture is it's godly. That means that you can't look at it the same way. You can't just say, I have a 150 IQ, I should understand it in 5 seconds. There's so many other factors going on at the same time. I could look at something and, there's one opinion like this, there's another opinion like this. According to Jewish law, it really comes out like this and like this. But how do we put it all together like a puzzle? That's work. It's complicated. So most of my classes try to make it very simple. Bottom line. Do this, you don't do that. You're allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that. Why? So we get into discussion. Right? But we don't pull everything apart. If we did that, I never get anywhere. And all my conversion students would say it's going to take us 10 years to convert or more, probably, if you're lucky. So it's got to be broken down. It's got to be understood, but it takes time, it takes effort. That's what toiling in Torah is. It's not just about intellectual stimulation. As the Rav Agon, Rav Moshe Schneider, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha, may his name be blessed, would say when a person learns Torah and he walks in Torah, meaning every split second he's thinking in Torah, that means it's a part of him. That means everything else is irrelevant. This is what the most important thing is, but you gotta live. It's not philosophy. So I'm putting what I learn into action. Does it make me a tzaddik? No. Does not make me righteous. Gives me the ability to build on that in order to be that. But we're not trying to show off. We're trying to reach higher spiritual levels. It takes time, takes effort. Now, I've known a number of people that, thought, learn this ancient text or whatever. How hard can it be? How deep can it be? Yeah, it can be very deep. But you don't give it a chance. It's difficult. It's supposed to be difficult. But there's so much meaning to what we do. And how we do things. And you don't have to know it according to Kabbalah. We have to understand what to do. And how to do it. There are multiple levels to reach, no question about it. But you see, you can't jump. A person's climbing a ladder. And the ladder is, 12 feet high. You get up a few rungs, you say, I'm Superman, and you try and jump to the top. Well, if you're vertically challenged, guess what happens? You'll be lucky if you grab the rung like a few more rungs up. If you're unlucky, you fall off the ladder. So my language, that means don't bite off more than you can chew. You want to make goals? That's great. Make it real. Make it something I can accomplish. And whatever you do, even if you fail, do not strive for mediocrity. When you strive for mediocrity, you fail. You fall well below. The reason is because I'm not really striving that high. I've heard my Rebbe say many times, if you shoot for the stars, well, you may not end up on the stars, but you may end up on the moon. You can have high, lofty goals. Just don't get demoralized if you don't reach them. But set goals high. Set the barrier high. And try and reach it. Don't kill yourself. Don't make something that's like impossible. But push yourself. Try and learn as much as you can. Maximize what we do. Don't ever say, I'm happy where I am. I'm happy being mediocre. That's great. Going for a job interview, tell that to the person who's interviewing you for the job. What are your goals? I don't really have any. I'm just happy where I am. I'll do what I have to do, but that's it. I'll do the minimum. Okay, thank you for your time. Bye. That's it. You failed. No job interviewer wants to hear that. Imagine the ultimate job interviewer. God himself. Right, when a person dies, one of the first questions going to be asked is, did you set aside time to learn Torah? So if a person learned the majority of his life and he took time to learn, what kind of question is that? Of course I learned Torah. Now I spent all my mornings for, 30 years, 40 years, whatever. Learning Torah every day. Well, what kind of question is that? Doesn't God know that? Of course he knows that. Well, that's not the question. I remember that, my Rebbe asked this question, in a class that he gave. And that was, whatever, the question the Talmud brings out, like what's going to be asked first? What did you, were you honest in business? Or did you learn Torah? Right, it's a contradiction, different places. What the first question is going to be. So my Rebbe said, but he sat and learned. And that's what the focus of your life was. Why would God ask that? He knows the answer anyway, so whatever question he asks, you could say that. But a person dedicated dedicated his life to Torah. For years, for the majority of his life. That's what he did. He learned whenever he could. Right? He had set times, and he learned, and he learned, and he learned. So what's the question? So my Rebbe said, the question is not did you learn Torah, right? That's obvious. Question is, how did you learn Torah? Did you learn a little bit, take a break, speak about politics with someone? Did you waste your time while you were learning? When you were learning, did you think of these ideals that you wanted to reach? That you wanted to envelop? Or did you sort of like read it along and it doesn't mean anything? Has no connection to my life. So I remember, feeling relatively small listening to this. I mean, he started going on. Torah, what is it? You learn it like you're learning mathematics. It means something. Of course, I'm sitting there, my book is open. Of course I'm learning. Right? There are different levels of learning. True. But he's saying, how did you learn? Where was your brain when you were learning? Was it totally focused? Or were you like spacing out? Or did your mind wander? So we have to train ourselves. If Torah is that important, why would you space out? See, there are certain things that we do that aren't good, and it's because we have other bad character traits that allow it to happen. In other words, if all things being equal, if we would really be the people we were, we wouldn't space out. We say the Shemona Esrei, 19 prayers, the Amidah as it's called, or the 19 blessings. We say it 3 times a day. All you men out there, at least women say it once a day or twice a day. Right, the main part of every prayer service. There are 19 blessings. Can we honestly say when we say them, each one I had proper intention? Forget Kabbalah. Proper intention, what the words mean. Where did my mind wander? Was I thinking about the electric bill? Was I thinking about, Game 7 of the NBA Finals? Was I thinking about whatever? Politics. Where was my brain? You say, God, what are you talking about? I prayed 3 times a day for years. During the week, Shabbos, I ate matzah, all these things. Again, God's going to cut us some slack. He understands we're human, we make mistakes. But He wants you to reach higher levels. He doesn't want you to space out. You have a direct conversation. And you're thinking about like what I'm going to eat next. How much is going to cut you some slack? I don't know. But I can tell you one thing. If you were standing in front of a king, you wouldn't be spacing out. I mean, maybe you would be. But in general, we wouldn't be spacing out if we understood what kingship is. So imagine, this will be a little bit of a jump for most people. Imagine you're in front of the King of Kings. We should space out. See, it's a good thing I'm not God. If I was God, everyone would be in trouble, including myself. This is that people. I say, I'm God, King of the universe. I'm giving you the opportunity to pray 3 times a day. You're thinking about shawarma? You're thinking about, I can't wait till the matzah's done? I'm thinking about Game 7. So if I was God in my language, and I saw that all around me, and I felt that, I'd say, what are you out of your cotton picking head? But He has mercy. He has infinite mercy, much more than I would. You do it once, you do it twice, to a person. 3rd time, right hand, left head. Bam! That's it. Or right hand, left, whatever, left hand, right hand. That's what happens. We don't tolerate that. Like, you see someone doing that, you don't have anything to do with them. It's a good thing we're not God. The world would have been over a long time ago. It's what we have to work on. At the same time, we don't throw in the towel. Because, it's very hard to have intention in all 19 blessings. True. If I didn't have intention in one blessing, okay, move on. Go to the next blessing. I didn't have intention in that one either. Try the next one. But see, then the Yetzer Hara comes the evil inclination and says, nah, see, you can't do it. It's too hard. You're thinking about this. You're thinking about that. You think God's going to forgive you. It'll give you any number of reasons why just to throw in the towel. So I say this a lot, and it cannot be underemphasized. As my Rebbe says, you live in the past, you have no future. You live in the past, you have no future. That means you don't just brush it aside and give it no meaning. You think about it, you analyze it, you deal with it, you move on. Why? It'll be like that ultimate huge vacuum cleaner. Gonna suck you in. And when it sucks you in, it's like a black hole. Can't get out. So what do? Pull the plug. Again, I'm making light, but this is what we should do. You take the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, kick them upside the head. You say, yeah, you can't do it. Yes, I can. No, you can't. Yes, I can. You do what we're able to do. What we fail at, we fail at. Well, we have to make the best effort. Well, again, we can just say, well, it's too hard. I'm not going to do it. The people that give up. That also happens. People put in different situations. People say it, normally we say God doesn't put a person in a situation he can't handle. So you have a situation, well, I couldn't handle it and they broke. Is that what God wanted? No. Because God knows you didn't have to break. There would have been ways around it. Different ways. But He gives what we can handle. We don't think we can handle it, but obviously He knows better. Because He plucked that soul. Put it into a body. He said, yeah, I know this soul's going to go through difficulty. And I know this, that, and the other thing is going to happen. But I also gave him the ability to go through it. Even if we don't think we can't, doesn't matter. God's there holding your hand the entire time. We just have to know how to grab it. And when we're sinking, we have to know where to get help from. But see, in this day and age, what we're looking at before the Messiah comes, that is that there ain't no one to grab onto in this world except for God Himself. The mantra of Ein Od Milvado. That there is no one outside of God. Because when you look what happens, you walk outside your door, you have no idea what's going to happen. It's a crazy, upside down world. And the greatest armies or whatever, and then you can't stop. It's not something that can be stopped. It's the ultimate in showing that God runs the world. And you have to say, God, okay, you're the one in charge. I'm just sort of a lackey here. And you have to let go and say, okay, He knows what He's doing. My Rebbe says, if you're happy with the way He runs the world 95% of the time, the other 5% you won't understand in 10 lifetimes. Move on. At the end of the day, you have to do what you have to do. You have to serve Him the way you have to serve Him. You let Him do what He has to do. Even if it doesn't look good. So as we stay up all night, sipping our coffee, soda, cheesecake, rugelach, whatever it is, keeping us awake. We may be slumped over, whatever we're learning, but we're showing it's important. We're making the effort even if we may fail. So God says, yeah, I understand that. And I understand you may fail. And you may fall asleep over your cheesecake. Or face cheesecake, right? You may fall asleep over your whatever you're learning. But you're showing God, I'm making the effort. That's the renewal of Torah. That's where we're trying to go. So a special announcement, this Wednesday is going to be a free webinar on reincarnation. Very hot topic. Anyone who's interested, you go to my Facebook fan page, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism. There's a video, and then there's a link in order to sign up. I think it's going to be a mind expanding type of class, talking about where the soul comes from and what happens life after death and how all that works and put together. Also, Tuesday nights, I have my Intro to Kabbalah class based on the book Derech Hashem, starting the 4th chapter, speaking about the forces in the world and our challenges through them. So anyone interested can certainly contact me, Rabbi Chaim Coffman at gmail.com, RabbiChaimCoffman at gmail.com. Also, you can take a look at my Facebook fan page, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism, and Beyond Noahides, as I work with converts to Judaism and and Noahides as well. So you can take a look there. You can go to my send me an email, and you can certainly sign up for this free class. Again, it's Wednesday 9 p.m. New York time or Eastern time in the States. So wishing everyone a happy Shavuot, and go easy on the cheesecake.